The UConn women unveiled some new postseason uniforms. Is this the sign of a new era? You're locked on.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Before we dive into today's show, I want to take a moment to say how thankful we are for all of you. We appreciate your support. If you haven't already subscribed, do so now. Click that button at the bottom of your screen. It should go click, and then you'll be good to go to never miss a moment of anything we do on Locked On UConn on YouTube. Follow us on all of our socials at Locked On UConn. And then, of course, if you're an audio listener, follow us on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts. This episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Head to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from. Need one now? Grab a 5 Hour Energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. Stock up today and stay energized. All right, we're going to bring in Bella Tamana from Hoops Capital of the World and also my co-host on Tuesdays and Thursdays and sometimes on Fridays. Bella, all right, so they kind of surprised us with this, the women at least, with these new uniforms. And this is something of a topic of interest on both the men's and women's side, right? Because some uniforms bring better luck. People think some are just kind of flat ugly. And so I'm going to put up the new uniform on the screen here for all of our viewers, our non-audio listeners. What was your initial reaction to this?
So I was hearing some murmurs about it, so I kind of expected something coming, something to come soon. I think that they didn't stray away from kind of their uniform that they've been going with. The trims are pretty, it's nothing too crazy is basically what I think I'm trying to say, in my opinion. Like, I don't think they did anything to the point where I'm like, oh my gosh, these are new uniforms. If I saw them from really far away, I feel like I wouldn't go crazy, see a super, super crazy difference. I don't know. I think it's an interesting time to do it. I think for me, I'm just kind of thinking like before March Madness, what do you think what do you think like the rhyme or reason is for that?
I don't know. I think sometimes you want a reset and it's like new season. So new threads. I mean, everyone usually gets new shoes during the postseason. So that's part of it too. It's kind of like it's almost like a rebirth. The season is a grind, and it's like it's almost like a reward for going through the rigors of a season. What struck me about this uniform right from the start is, see, this is when I was 14 years old and you weren't alive. This Rebecca Lobo iconic photo of them winning the national championship, it's not identical. So don't like, oh, this looks nothing like it. It's the Huskies on the lapel of the left leg, and it's not identical. So I'm gonna go back to KK Arnold. You see how they did that with the Huskies, and it's also that gray little extra accent on the leg. It's not in cursive, so they didn't go full throwback. But I feel like it's a little bit of a nod or an homage to past teams. And if that's what they're doing, I'm all for it. I think that's super cool. I'd love to. Maybe I'll ask Kyle Muncie or Game Day Connor, like maybe they can give us some insight into that on social media. But all in all, I don't hate the uniform. This is not an ugly look. I think it's clean. Mm-hmm. I'm a huge fan of the red accents of UConn, so I love the lines. I don't mind the U being red. I would like it. See how this? I don't know if people can see this, but the ball that I have in my hand, it's like all it's all shadowed with red outline. Mm-hmm. I would love that on a uniform, maybe even on a navy, like where everything is completely outlined. The U is outlined. It's not straight red. It's not straight navy or white. But as far as a home uniform goes, I think I would give it, if we're grading on a scale of 1 to 10, I would give it a 6.
Okay. I like that. I think I would go somewhere somewhere similar. If it were up to me, honestly, Mark, I really, really like the throwbacks that they wear right now with the old Husky on it, and I think there's a decent amount of red kind of trimming in that one too. I'm a fan of like that old Husky look. I know, there's like we said, new era, and things. Obviously, I think there's always a time and place for change, and I feel like this is a good one. Obviously, without, now Paige leaving, I think that's the biggest thing for me. I think they're figuring, okay, like Paige is gone. How can we somewhat try to like make the fans excited about next season already? I think that's kind of like the sort of angle here. Would you kind of agree, disagree on that?
Yeah. It's also just a something to. Honestly, I think it's more for the players than it is for any of us. I know this is going to be merch, and I know that people are going to buy these.
Mhm.
But I think sometimes we forget that sometimes they try things and it just doesn't work. And here's a great example. All right, we're going to go through some past uniforms on the women's side that are, in my opinion, some are good, some are atrocious, some are god awful. Okay, so like I'm not gonna go from worst to first. I will give you, like, first off, no disrespect to my buddy Basil, who's who loves wearing his UConn men's all black jersey. Get those to the moon. Never want to see the UConn men or women in all black. This is an ugly uniform. There is no black in our in our color scheme, like, ever. Like, there just isn't. Like, you can get away with that if you're like Oregon. You can get away with that if you're like Ohio State or something like that.
Yeah.
But I just don't. There's nothing. I mean, the uniform itself is, this one in particular with the UConn all black with the gray accents, is pretty clean.
Yeah.
But I just don't want to see UConn wearing all black. That's my.
Yeah.
I mean,
being a Navy school, it's like navy and black don't really mesh like that.
it's literally a color clash. Like, I hate to be in fashion school right now, but it's the truth. Like, if I, no disrespect to anyone, but if I saw you walking down the street and you were wearing a navy shirt with black pants, I'd be like, what are you doing? Like, in my brain, like, I wouldn't confront you.
Yeah.
It's not that serious, but in my head, sorry, the cough came out. But like, and then talk about going the entirely opposite direction. All navy with a basketball and a C. You like these though?
I do, and I don't know what it is. I just think I like that old school retro feel. Like, and I think also it's who was in the uniform. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Sure.
let's be honest. Like, that picture is like a pretty cool picture. Like, I think them playing it also could be amplified because of that picture, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, you also have Notre Dame's kind of older uniforms in the background. Like, it feels nostalgic. I love nostalgia, right? As much as it, I love nostalgia, but I hate it at the same time because obviously, it can bring back memories. It's like, dang, you can't ever get that back. But for me, I don't know. There's something about this picture and that I think amplifies the uniform, and I like it. I like the old school.
Okay. All right, couple more here. This is I literally labeled this brutal white because it looks like a sweater. Like, it first off, it's not a jersey that's up by over the shoulder. It's all the way out to the outside of your shoulder. It's not like on your clavicle, right?
Right.
And it's all white in the back, as you can see.
Mhm.
And then you have this kind of navy weird kind of, like, almost looks like it's choking the player. I think it's an ugly, ugly look. Do you agree?
I do, and I also think that, I mean, usually the women's team has an older demographic, so maybe they're thinking like, okay, people buying the jerseys, not necessarily. Maybe they weren't necessarily saying, oh, let's do it with a sweater in mind, but I think the thicker straps can cater to kind of like an older demographic, in my opinion.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, to me, ugly's ugly. I don't care if you're 20 or 120. My biggest thing is, when you look at this outfit, the only thing I like, the only redeeming quality of this uniform is the way they spell UConn. I love the UC capitalized and the ONN non. I think that's the biggest misconception when people write it out. Or like, the Washington Post did an article about UConn and it was like UC hyphen, like, it was just weird. Anyway, that kind of stuff pisses me off. But anyway, that's not even the worst one. These are white, and I like these. These are all white, like almost like platinum white. This is, obviously Stewie driving to the hoop. back in the old American days, but I actually don't like these because they have a little bit of a gray accent, and I'm a big gray fan. Now, saying that, I'm a huge fan of gray uniforms. These 2013 Hyper Elite uniforms are the ugliest uniforms we've ever worn. And I don't mind if they tone these down a little bit. They almost, again, they almost look like we're wearing orange because of how red and weird this color looks like. Yeah.
Come on.
I don't even know what to say.
I don't like it. Obviously, I don't think anyone likes that. I think the only thing that we can probably both agree on, like you said, they spelled the capitalized the UC. Other than that, they kind of look like you said orange. You know how the Thunder wear like a gray alternate jersey with like the orange? That's kind of what it's giving me right now. Like it's giving me that sort of vibe. I don't like that at all.
It could be the lighting where, you see these in person. If you go back, time machine to 2013, I like the effort though. Like I don't love just having like, we're not Notre Dame. Like, don't just give me, plain navy and plain gold and blah, blah, blah. Like I'm cool with like them going gray and, doing some red accents and stuff like that. I'm totally fine with them experimenting with alternate jerseys. In fact, I would love a clean gray. Like if you gave me this in all gray with like a red accent on just the Yukon, sign me up. Don't do all the sides and like the trim and stuff like that.
Let me ask you this, and this is, you shouted out the American being in the American Conference. I think the uniforms now are automatically better because I think the Big East looks so sharp.
God, yeah.
It just looks so sharp. And again, I think that's the nostalgia feel of just like, they used to be in the Big East and then they left and now we have it back and now it just feels like a little more old school. I just love the Big East lettering on the uniform. It's great.
Yeah. Well, don't get too comfortable because now all the powers that be are like, well, we should get that ACC Big East merger. And, I'm just saying, like, it'll probably still be called the Big East, but there could be some tweaks to the pins that they are, or those, the embroidery that they put on for the conference. But, all right. I think all in all, like just going back to this, put a bow on it. This is a good uniform. Enjoy it. Like if you're, listen, what people will love this uniform is if they go on and win the national championship wearing this thing. Yeah,
100%. Make it nostalgic yourself.
I haven't seen a Navy, like an away jersey with this. I don't know if that's been shown because obviously they're unveiling them for postseason, for home for the first two games. So I'm curious if they're going to wear anything different on the road because they're a 2 seed.
Yes, they do have the blue. They did like a little teaser video with it.
Okay.
It's solid. I mean, it's it's literally just the opposite, just with blue. So
is it okay?
Yeah.
I thought I don't remember. I watched the video. Maybe I'm just getting old. Maybe I just was like, oh, whatever. Just the white jersey is the only one that I found quickly online. All right. We're gonna take a quick break, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about where this 24-25 team ranks all time. Obviously, we don't have a finished product yet, but we're gonna talk about where they rank currently, and we will return after the break. We're all about the stats because numbers don't lie. When it comes to the all-new Nissan Armada Pro-4X, the numbers are an MVP level type. With the ability to tow up to 8,500 pounds, it can quite literally carry the whole team, plus the gear and wherever you need to go. It's powered by a twin-turbo V6 engine, delivering the strength and performance to handle highways, back roads, and everything in between. And with room for 8 people, the Armada Pro-4X is built for big crews, big adventures, and even bigger memories. Whether you're exploring off-road trails or rolling up to the arena, the Armada Pro-4X brings power, versatility, and style wherever you go. Take your adventure to new heights in the all-new Nissan Armada Pro-4X. Learn more at nissanusa.com. Daylight saving snuck up on us again, huh? And if you're feeling that lost sleep, 5 Hour Energy has your back. The extra sunshine means more time for fun, but sometimes you need a little boost to power through. Whether you're staying up late watching the NCAA tournament, squeezing in a round of golf after work, or just trying to keep up your busy schedule, 5 Hour Energy gives you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it. I've been staying up late watching all these tournament actions, getting ready for these games, and it keeps me active. My 5 Hour Energy keeps me awake and ready to go, especially even for the next day. And it's whether I'm at a game or traveling, 5 Hour Energy is easy to grab and keeps me refreshed. Head to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from, including watermelon, blue raspberry, peach mango. You can even build your own 12-pack or 24-pack and have it delivered right to your door. Need one now? Grab a 5 Hour Energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. They're everywhere. Stock up today. Stay energized. And we're back. Let's get the Nissan logo out of here. All right, we're back on Locked On UConn, Bella Tamano, and yours truly, Mark Zanetto. All right, Bella, what do you think of this? 2020, 24, 25. Where does this team rank? All time.
All time, it's tough to say. Like we said, this isn't a finished product. There is still, it's the most important basketball still left to be played. For me, I think that this team, you can't really ever know where this team would have matched up all time, because of the injuries. You who knows what this team could have accomplished without the injuries that they had, right? The only person that none of their stars besides Sarah really stayed healthy. Paige still had a little bit of a knee thing, and then AZ was out her fair share. Obviously, Aubrey was also out for pretty much half the season. So I think it's tough to say. I think the only really way you can compare it is talent-wise. Talent-wise, I would say it's tough. I think that because you have Paige and because you have Sarah, I think that you'll have to almost see like how Sarah's career starts to go in the next couple of years to say, okay, like how impactful really was she, in my opinion, if that kind of makes sense. I mean, what would you say, guys? I feel like, like I said, you were alive for
I'm older.
Yeah, you're a little bit older. Where do you kind of compare it? What year do you compare it to, or what era?
First of all, you're sweet. You're a little older. I think I'm double your age plus extra. But no, I think for me, you kind of put it perfectly where it's like it's hard to quantify where this team is right now. You'd have to almost say, I was looking back when we were talking about this topic yesterday, and it's like the 25 most dominant women's basketball teams of all time. Unsurprisingly, UConn, led the way with a lot of teams, but there's probably 11. There's probably at least 5 or 6 teams that you could put in that category that didn't win a title, that were just as talented as the 11 national championship teams. Like if you go all the way back to the 96-97 team, they entered the tournament 30-0. And were an overwhelming favorite, but a red hot Tennessee squad stunned them in the Elite Eight. And so that was led by Carol Walters. It was after the 95, undefeated season. So that could be one. I don't want to put this team in a category yet, but because they haven't won a title and we haven't even gotten to the NCAA tournament, that's kind of where I leaned on this question and kind of in this realm. I think maybe Maya Moore's third, the quest for a third straight championship, that 2010, 2011 team. And in the Final Four loss to Notre Dame, despite her almost putting up 40. And so that's one, that's the type of game we don't want to have happen. We don't want to have Sarah or Paige, throw up a 38 piece in the Elite Eight to USC and have them lose. So, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of the crazy thing is like, think about it. They've won 11 championships. They've made 15 of the last 16 Final Fours. Hopefully this year will be 16 out of the last 17. If they were to, even if you look the 5 teams that are probably the best teams that never won, this team could have easily 13 to 15 national championships.
Mhm.
Think about it. You have that 96-97 team that was undefeated. Then you have a 2000-2001 team that totally had injuries and still made the Final Four and lost Notre Dame. Then you had Maya Moore in her trying to get a third straight, losing in the Final Four to Notre Dame. Then you had the 16-17 team. That was the 111 game win streak, ended in a final in Mississippi State's OT upset win in the Final Four, denying UConn a 5th straight championship. Crazy. And then last one, 2017-2018, maybe the most talented team not to win it all. UConn lost another Final Four thriller to Notre Dame. So with Arika Ongwambawali's corner jumper, that wasn't necessarily a buzzer beater, but it was close. And so, yeah, I mean, like, that's what makes me laugh about, like, people are like, well, has Geno lost his step? It's like, the dude is like 7 plays away from being a 15-time national champion or 16-time national champion.
That's kind of the thing I have for you. I know you're good basketball mind. Is there anything that you would have done differently with this team, coached differently with this team, hypothetically, to bring out more of them, to kind of like that maybe would have increased their rank on this list, or just gotten more out of the team or players?
I think the only thing I would have done strategically different, and this is the funniest thing ever, is me saying something I would do different than Geno. It's something that he's already done, but I would have done it earlier in the year. And I think part of it is availability, and I don't think Aubrey wasn't available earlier in the year. I think I would have pressed earlier, because knowing how kind of slow some of the starts of the season, how slow they started some of these games this year. If there's one kind of tiny criticism I would have of this team, is that is one of the main reasons why they lost to Tennessee, why they lost to actually Tennessee was a little bit different, but Notre Dame, USC, some of these games that kind of got away from them, but then they had to have these furious comebacks and almost win it and almost pull it out.
Yeah.
So like sometimes when you kind of play with your hair on fire, like you don't have to worry about the attention to detail in half court offense, because you kind of speed them up. That's all. I think I would have kind of tried to speed up the internal clock of that USC team, that Notre Dame team, because it's a tactic that coaches use all the time, and Geno uses it pretty religiously. And I just don't think he did enough of it earlier in the year. That'd be my only criticism.
I think that's fair. And like we said, we're nitpicking like the greatest.
Oh God, yeah. They were 31-3 this year or something crazy like that.
And I guess the other thing that kind of comes to mind when we even try to rank this team is the quality of opponents is also tough. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's when you play in the Big East, yes, they had some pretty good. They had one really good win. I'm gonna say it. Like, really, that South Carolina was their only really, really, awesome win. They played some North Carolinas, Iowa State, but nothing compared to that South Carolina win. Sorry, South Carolina win.
Yeah.
So I think it's tough, being in the Big East. The Big East used to be a lot more competitive. And so now that, they play in that, even in the American Athletic, I guess that kind of that wasn't super competitive either for the women's side. But I do think that some of the teams that we consider great have played some tougher opponents.
Yeah, but the only thing I would give pushback on is the game of basketball on the women's side has become more accessible to go to a school like a small like a Big East school that's not UConn and still get great coaching and still get good opportunities. You may not be the same talent level that UConn is, but like let's face it, like for all the showering of praise that the SEC and the Big Ten get, I mean, Indiana is not a good basketball program for the women. Like, I don't care what anyone says. Like, that's a school that has a ton of resources that they don't actually put into women's basketball. Or, you could probably go to Kansas State or something like that on the Big 12 side. I'm just picking out names. Right. So like, or SEC, like, and no disrespect, but I don't really think that even though Georgia is good in football and basketball on the men's side, I'm not exactly scared of Georgia women's basketball, like in terms of, but they have as much resources as anybody, and they could. So one thing I will say is that they're still good quality opponents that they play. It's just unfortunate that UConn dominates the Big East in the respect of there isn't a counterpart. There isn't a Notre Dame. Creighton is close. Like Creighton will win 26 games and still lose to UConn by 20 both times because they're just like a tier below. And I think that's what I would say is that there's still good coaches, good players in the Big East. It's just unfortunate that they're not going to be able to catch up because UConn is already so much further ahead of them, and the gap is too far.
Yeah, I agree. I see what you're saying. It's almost like you take, the number one. I don't know if you know soccer, but Italian soccer, they do Serie A and then Serie B, and so it's like just tiers. And if you take the top player in Serie A and then or top team in Serie A, top team in Serie B, yes, they're like both good in their respective categories, but eventually, if they play each other, I mean, it's one team is just going to dominate. So, yeah, I see what you're saying with that. It's kind of not their fault in so many words.
No, it isn't. And, like it is what it is. And you play who's in front of you. And that's it. Like if UConn makes a change to either the Big 12 or, they do some kind of merger with the ACC, then, obviously then things will change. But until that happens, you just got to keep playing who's in front of you. All right. When we return, we're going to talk a little bit about, is this a championship or bust season for this team? I have an answer for that, and I know Bella does too. We're going to talk about that after the break. If you didn't know, Locked On and Amazon have come join forces for a studio show. I'm going to let my guys, Andy Patton and Isaac Shade, tell you all about it.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
All right, we're back on Locked On UConn with your host here, Mark Zanetto, and Bella Tamano of Hoops Capital of the World, and of course, our co-host on Locked On UConn as well. All right, this is a championship or bust season, no?
Absolutely, 100%. I think that you cannot. I don't want to say waste Paige Bueckers' career because she's done a lot off the court as well as just like with the game of women's basketball itself. But for Paige Bueckers, if you day one in the building, once I knew we even had her, once I knew she even committed to UConn, I expected her to contest with like Diana Taurasi and these big UConn names for championships. I expected her to be a great and win championships. And I think it's a waste of, I don't want to say it, but I almost feel like it's a waste of a career, not necessarily her fault, but just everything is a waste, in my opinion, if we don't win a championship with Paige Bueckers.
Yeah, I think, and I appreciate the comment. Like it is a championship or bust season, but like most UConn seasons are. And I think we need to kind of reshape the mindset of this fan base in the future once Paige is gone. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean that as a negative. I mean it as like, look, women's basketball is, when I had Ben Pickman on yesterday or 2 days ago, by the time this comes out, and his comment was the parity of women's basketball, and this is something I totally agree with, is not necessarily in the the men's tournament is gonna start, and it'll already have started when this comes out on Friday morning, and I'm sure there'll be upsets, and there'll be like a 14 over a 3, and then maybe it'll be a 15 over a 2. In the last couple of years, you've had a 16 over a 1. You just don't see that in the women's game, and that's okay. But what you do see, and what he's expecting when we get to the regionals, the Sweet 16, the Elite 8, is not all the 1 seeds are going to get there, and so that's the parity, and it's starting to go from there and mushroom out, right? As the game grows, as there's more resources around the country and different places. So you shouldn't look at this and go, man, it's, UConn's got to get to the Final Four. Like, it's guaranteed. It's not. Like, you have USC in the way, you have Oklahoma in the way, you have teams that have put resources into their teams and have good players, star players. And then the same thing goes to South Carolina. The same thing goes to Texas, and the same thing goes to UCLA. Those are your 4-1 seeds. And it's not a foregone conclusion. Notre Dame's a 3 seed. I have them going to the Final Four this year. In the Spokane region above UConn, I have NC State beating UCLA in the regional final. So I think that's the trick is like, is it a championship or bust season? Yes, because we want Paige to go out, into the sunset, championship, and everyone's going to feel great for her because of all she's been through. But if they don't win it, it's not a failure of a season. It's just the difference of 10 years of women's basketball kind of meeting UConn where they always have been.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think to your point, when I used to fill out a bracket, like especially during the Stewie days, it was literally like
Done.
you get all the
It's a
other
wrap.
teams, and then you see UConn, you're like, you don't even like pick the other teams to see who they're against. UConn. Okay, everybody else. Like that's literally what it is. And I think I'm sure most people did that, but especially being from Connecticut, that's literally like it just goes without saying. Like it's what you do, it's what you did, and it's sad that it's changed, but it's good for the game. And like you said, as we get into that Sweet 16 Elite 8 region, there are more upsets. So that's what I noticed this year with the bracket for the first round. Like
You may pick a random one.
And you even said it in the episode we did on Monday. There was a team that was like Creighton's 8 seed and they had, 26 wins or however many wins. And then there's another 8 seed that has that's almost under 500, correct? It was some stat like that.
In conference, yeah. Like they were, yeah.
Right. So it's tough. I also think that this means a lot, in my opinion, for Geno. And don't get me wrong, he's proved plenty, but now I would say it's officially like that new era of basketball, that new era where the game has really changed. And Geno has yet to win a championship in that new era. And I think this is probably going to be his best chance to do it because, like we said, recruits aren't all saying, okay, Connecticut, it's not Connecticut or bust anymore. We talk about championship or bust. It's not Connecticut or bust anymore. It's, there's a lot more programs that players can choose from. And I think that winning a national championship in this era, it's not career defining because he's, we already know how great he is, but I do think it's important. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Sure.
I think you can, and if there ever is a coach that somewhat gets to a point like Geno, what people are going to argue, well, women's basketball wasn't what it was, but you can at least have one championship to say, yeah, it wasn't what it was, but he was still able to get the job done. And I think this is important. I do think that him winning in this era is very important because this could be his last chance.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that. I think he's gonna have now that he has Sarah Strong in the fold, unless she transfers, I think he's gonna have a lot more chances. But I do think this is special in the respect that it's the modern era of women's basketball as we know it now, with Paige and AZ and kind of like the transition from that, I don't want to say old guard because they're not old, but like it's definitely, I definitely hear what you're saying. It's like a nuanced way to say it would be like, there's been a lot of chatter over the years that like he doesn't run a modern offense. They don't rely enough on the 3-point shot. Paige is a mid-range merchant, like all that stuff, right? So I think if they were to win a national championship this year, it would validate that there are many ways that you can still win a national championship. You don't have to play like Tennessee and shoot 53s. You don't have to play like South Carolina and just like brick every shot and go get every rebound. Like, you know what I mean? Like there are, and I'm being silly, South Carolina, take it easy. But like there are different ways that you can win titles.
Yeah.
And it would show, also it would show 40 years of excellence isn't, like a lifetime achievement award. I think that's part of it too, is like this year has been kind of like one of those where he's gotten this, he's got the record and all this different accolades and everything that comes with it, but he's still an elite coach.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that would be the prevailing theme.
I agree. The other thing that it's not, again, it's not like I'm saying this just almost like a not devil's advocate, but kind of just bringing it to light because I want to just kind of hear opinions on it. And it's not the worst thing in the world, but because there's a larger number of popular teams now, like fans don't gravitate towards UConn the same way that they did. And I'm not saying like the Connecticut
Yeah.
people. I'm just saying like people fell in love with Caitlin Clark and became an Iowa fan. I'm talking about these younger girls that are growing up and like seeing all of the greats. The more UConn starts to kind of not, again, it's for lack of a better term. What was that?
Fade?
Yeah, the more UConn starts to fade, perfect word for it. They kind of they lose their street cred, and I think we already saw it this year. They didn't get the respect they deserve because they got a number 2 seed, and I think that was again very disrespectful. I think to a team like this and to a program like this. So I do think that I don't want them to like lose that same like fan and that same amount of fans that they have, and not that UConn will they're still going to pack buildings and things like that, but that like we said, we're coming to a new era, and that comes with a lot of new fans. So I still want UConn to kind of be that team. So I don't know if that has any effect on it, on kind of again if we miss out on a national championship.
I don't necessarily know it will. I think if they don't get to the Final Four, I think you can have that concern. If they get to the Final Four and they lose to South Carolina or they lose to like a Texas or whoever, I think you can. The same people are the same silly trolls are going to still talk about how Geno can't win a big one since 2016. Blah blah blah. But I think when it comes to like fading away as a power, I think that question will be answered more so when Geno starts to think about retiring versus, him still having. I mean, next year he's going to have the best player in the country. Like, again, it's not even a question. Sarah Strong's going to be the best player in the country. And, it's good. That's a good piece to kind of build off of.
Yeah. Essentially, I think my biggest fear is I don't want to be the unk at the function talking about like, oh, remember UConn's glory days? Like, I still want it to be, I want it to be the glory days. You know what I'm saying? Like for somebody like you, Mark, you grew up watching this team, and we can still talk about it and talk about how great they are still to this day. For somebody like me that kind of came in during the middle, and even somebody that was born in 2015, obviously, technically, they didn't get to really experience it when they were younger, but now they're getting to that age where like they're still great. Right. I want the young kids. I want them to still pick UConn to be their team. Right. Like just like I did. So
I hear you. I think those talks are premature, but I appreciate it because you know what? I think also too, it's a good conversation to have between someone who's in their early 20s to someone who's in their mid 40s, because I don't think that's part of the conversation, but I'm also not like, I'm not young. Like, so it's not, for you to kind of bring that stuff up is kind of like eye-opening to me, because it's one of those things where you don't necessarily think about that stuff when, you've seen, it's crazy. I've literally seen the UConn women and men win 17 national championships in my 44 years. That's insane. So, but to someone that crazily enough is born in 10 or 11 years ago and is starting to really get into basketball, they've seen a couple on the men's side, they haven't seen any on the women's side. So it's kind of like, oh, so we used to be really good. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I get what you're saying. Like, that's a really interesting take, and I never thought of it that way.
And the only other thing too, yes, it's because you said because I'm a little bit younger than you, but it's also I think because I'm a Patriots fan, and I think that's the biggest thing. It's they
don't spoil the conversation.
No, okay? Fair, but they
don't spoil it.
Yeah, I know. And just like that, though, you know what I'm saying? Like, just like that, now it's like, do you remember how great the Patriots were? Like, it's almost like it's a distant memory, even though it was literally 7 years since I won the last championship, which isn't super. It feels long, but it sounds long, but it doesn't feel super long. You know what I'm saying? So things can happen. So I think I'm more so just a little bit nervous, and I don't want that to happen.
I think what you're going through is you're going through legend, nostalgia, withdrawal. Like, you lose Tom Brady, you lose Bill Belichick, and now you're kind of in this purgatory where you had Gerard Mayo, now you're going to Mike Vrabel, and you don't, maybe Drake May is it, maybe he's not. But with UConn, we're still kind of in this legend era, right? You still have Geno, you still have the CD and the staff, you still have Paige and everybody. So save the Patriots doom and gloom, and I'll save my Giants doom and gloom for when Geno and then Dan Hurley retire, and that's hopefully multiple years down the road.
All I gotta say is time is a thief. Enjoy it now, and let's go win a national championship.
That's right. Go Huskies. This will come out Friday morning, so it'll be a day before the women play and the day of the men's game. So this has been another episode of Locked on UConn. For Bella Tamano, I'm Mark Snetto, asking you to stay locked in, stay connected, and remember, it's not how you get it done. It's about doing it in a way that it can't be done any better. Go Huskies.